Hello and welcome. I have been drawing consistently in sketchbooks for well over a year now, and I post short clips of my usually 20-minute interval drawing process videos pretty much every day. And I thought that today I will share with you kind of my story of how I started this habit of drawing while studying and sketching for 6 female portraits with variations of their side views. The total session time was around 45 minutes. I always keep track of how long I draw because drawing for me is more like a therapy session, and I want to feel relaxed and content and accomplished afterwards. It's kind of my way to de-stress. So how did I get started? I think for a lot of people who are interested in drawing, who loves art, they know why they want to do something like this. There's a lot of benefits to drawing and sketching. For me, I already mentioned, it really helps me relax. It lets me focus on something other than work. For a lot of you can probably relate to this, but when I work, I had to stay in front of a computer, seated a lot of times. And when I focus on work, it really strains my back. I lose sight of posture, and it can be really stressful. So drawing kind of takes my mind off of that and allows me to focus on something and keep your mind off of everything else that's really distracting. So that's why I draw, and I think a lot of times you can break down to how to get started into 3 steps. Well, for me, the first step is actually recognizing that sometimes it's really hard to find the time because I have a full-time job and there's a lot of responsibilities day to day. And so for me to start drawing, I actually had to consciously schedule time. I had to make time for it. So step number 1 is to put it into my schedule, ideally alone time, so that I can just focus on drawing and nothing else. And I think number 2 is that recognizing you don't actually need a lot of time or really starting material to get started and draw. I purposely make sure that the intervals are a lot of times pretty short. I would say 15 to 20 minutes is all you need. And you don't need a lot of materials to get started. I mean, I do enjoy going to an art store, browse around, and buy a pencil or 2, but honestly, you don't need anything special. Grab a pencil, grab paper. You don't need special paper either. You know, this sketchbook that I'm using right now, it's something that I just bought on Amazon. It didn't really cost a lot. And just get started. And I would say number 3 is sometimes planning ahead really helps as well, because when you're sitting down in front of your desk with pencil and paper, you don't know what to draw. So planning ahead for me means when I'm actually not drawing, I think of all the things that I want to potentially capture in life, right? And that could be while I'm walking around, while I'm doing chores. And I do use Pinterest. I think it's a great way to actually capture the subject or references that I want to draw or paint later on. And so that when I'm actually ready and I sat down in front of a computer, I could just start. I could put my pencil to paper. I could start mixing paint. I already know in my head what I wanted to create. And that is really important. So planning ahead is something else that I recommend. And that's pretty much it. That's kind of my journey for how to get started. It's broken down into 3 steps. Number 1, recognize that it is hard to find time, so actually make time for it. Number 2, recognizing that you don't need a whole lot to get started. So it kind of takes the burden away from needing all the stars to get aligned. Right? It's a change of mindset. Don't feel like it's such a scary or daunting task to get started, and just do it. And then number 3, plan ahead and think about all the things that you wanted to draw before you sit down and focus on drawing. What that allows you is you don't need to think twice about do I want to do pencil? Do I want to do a pen sketch? Do I want to draw flowers? Do I want to draw a man standing? It just comes naturally when you have already thought about ahead of time the things that interest you, inspire you. The moment you sit down, the moment you have something in front of you, you could just start. There are also, I would say, probably 3 tips that has really helped me. Tip number 1 is that I set a reminder for myself that it's time to draw. And over the year, I have also slowly built up a routine, and that has really helped me to reduce the time that's needed to get started and keep it going as well. Tip number 2 is having drawing materials ready to go. That is actually incredibly important, because if you have to dig out and find the things to get started, well, that really takes a toll. You're not going to be able to keep that habit going. What I have found that's really useful is I just keep the materials on my desk where I can see them, and I can grab them whenever I want. And tip number 3 is having a way to measure my progress really helps. Now for me, I do more than just doing a sketchbook, but keeping just a simple sketchbook really helps, right? Because in the sketchbook, if you continuously draw and practice in it, you can see how your drawings have progressed over time. You know, when you flip back to the first page of the sketchbook, when you first started, your mindset, how did you struggle with that one? Because I know I sure did. The lines were wonky, my hand was shaking, the hatching were not very uniform, all kinds of issues. And looking back from the first page to now, it's an enjoyment. When you start measuring your progress in something like a sketchbook, it's a really beautiful way for you to go back. It's kind of like a journal, if you will, right? Because it kept all the history, all the things that went on. It's also a reminder what went through your head when you decided to draw that, and why, right? I record myself, I capture my progress, and I make videos of them. I have become incredibly efficient in doing all of that, but creating these little videos also serve as a reminder, and capturing my progress has also helped me to measure how I'm doing over time. For this drawing, I really wanted to practice drawing side views, and I found a few on Pinterest and saved them to my board, and that allows me to find them easily when I am ready to draw. I also set an objective for this session, which is to capture the profile boundaries correctly. I didn't care too much about capturing the likeness of the models or the values via shading. I really cared about capturing the overall shape and the feel of the person. As you can see, after the initial sketches, I actually went back and I started to emphasize where I think the curvatures or the contours of the faces are in the side portraits. And I created thicker and heavier strokes where I think those lines were. And that's because that was my objective. I really wanted to capture that as part of this sketchbook exercise. Do you think I have achieved this objective? Leave a comment. Let me know what you think, and thank you for watching.